Just checking it out.
A couple of things. Some of the cars, some of the junk cars are towing from the police department. We tow for the police department in West Smithfield. And we've been towing for them for 40 years. So some of the cars come and go. Again, my son lives on the property with my two grandchildren. So we make a point to make sure there's no oil or anything on the ground. Yes, it does look like, sometimes it looks like a little junkyard, but the cars, again, come and go. The other thing is, any proposal for use that's allowed by zoning has to go to planning for approval under the site plan review. Is that correct, Mr. Slinsky?
I'm sorry, I'm making a notation. I'm going to ask you this question. Tow cars, some are from North Smithfield Police Department, some come and go, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's why I didn't hear you. So what was the question?
Any proposal for a use that's allowed in the zone has to go to planning for approval under site plan review, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, and of course, I'm changing the use of the section 17 of zoning, but okay, yeah.
I don't know the number.
That's okay.
Okay. So that's it. Thank you.
So can I follow up on your
Sure.
question? So you've been towing for town needs, the police department has you tow cars.
Yeah.
Temporarily to their either salvaged or moved out. I guess I heard some testimony from the residents here tonight that vehicles were being parked past the area that they were allowed to be parked from the previous owner. And that, of course, those uses transfer to any new owner. So I guess where would you be parking those town, where the police department had a vehicle to tow, where were they being parked?
They're being parked in the Mount Pleasant Road area, and both my trucks enter and exit from Mount Pleasant Road. They do not exit or enter from 1401 Victory Highway. Okay?
So
The neighbors, they never see flashing lights towards the right side of the property we're talking about. Again, all trucks come off Mount Pleasant Road, not Victory Highway.
thank you.
Just in conclusion, thank you for your time to consider this evening. The neighbors have talked about some of the original plans we submitted, some of the original paperwork we submitted, and we acknowledge it's been modified. We've modified it to try to address the concerns of the neighbors and to try to address the concerns of the members of the Smithfield Town Council. It's a new plan. We're trying to address the concerns. We're trying to create a buffer. We're stipulating what we'll do on the road. We're stipulating that we won't expand the auto salvage, the auto body, auto repair business beyond what's currently there. Right, the original proposal did not contain that language. We're stipulating we're not going to expand the auto body, auto repair business. We're giving a buffer. We're stipulating we'll do what the town says we need to do regarding the road. We're trying to work with both members of the council and to address the concerns of the neighbors. And I think we've made quite an effort to do it. I'm sure not to the satisfaction of the neighbors. I'm not sure we could ever satisfy them. But I believe we've made a good faith effort to come back before you with something that makes sense for everybody. No one's ever going to be perfectly happy. No one's ever going to get a perfect plan. You do have internal regulations and brakes that you can put on whatever the development can be. We've heard the specter, oh, this could come in, that could come in, this could come in. But you've got site plan review. You've got the ordinance that restricts what can go in there in the first place. There's a number of internal controls that you can exercise to make sure that what goes in there is not out of character and out of what makes sense for that neighborhood. So you've got internal plans. So we can hear horror stories, oh, this could come in, that could come in, this could come in. You can control what comes in. You've got zoning, you've got planning, you've got site plan review, you've got ordinances which control what can go in this watershed area. You've got all the tools in your toolbox that you need to make sure that what Mr. Russo does is appropriate. So again, in conclusion, we would ask that the relief we've sought be granted. We respect the concerns of the neighbors, but we think that what we put forward moves a long way towards trying to address everyone's concerns. Thank you.
I'd like to say these few words. You know, I've known young John since he's 10 years old. First met him in the fourth grade at lunch, but then he was in my class in the fifth, so we didn't have to do anything at lunch. But I've known him, he went to school with my daughter. We always had a cordial relationship. But sitting on this board, this committee, questions have to be asked. I sat primarily and I listened. And there are some things that, you know, are like time to ingest again, but it's not a vendetta against the Russos. It's just that after going over some zoning, looking not only at your maps and grids, but others, I had questions. In representing the community, I had to ask them. And I think, John, I think you understood. Due diligence had to be taken. I know what you'd like to do, and there's a few areas, especially when it concerns a zone change, that would be the thing that I'm fearful for. Because of the gentleman who did choose to live on the highway. And he has a beautiful home, by the way. Go by it often. And people in that area keep up their properties, as many do in North Smithfield. And the only question I have is about, and Mr. Marcantonio brought it up, the zone change and what can be done in one zone as opposed to another. So I just want you to know where I'm coming from.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is discussion by council vote or other action on request to grant access within a portion of Carlton Avenue right-of-way as shown on plan entitled Easement Plan for John Russo dated September of 2018.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Mr.
I'm
Hill.
sorry, maybe for the council edification and for the public edification, if you just lay out what's before you, Mr. Dodd can confirm that, because we kind of morphed the two issues together. May I just do that? What's before you for the past meeting was an approval of a subdivision of land by the planning board, which was their function, subject to access on Carlton Road. There was a lot of discussion about that access for that subdivision being either an easement or a town road up to town specifications. That is one thing that's before the council tonight for the last meeting. So the subdivision of the planning board was granted subject to the council granting access. So access either by easement or by town road. So I think that discussion would resolve Mr. Russo's ability to build his house with access on Carlton Road. That's the subdivision of land.
Subdivision has nothing to do with the zone change.
That's why.
One is the division of property into two lots. One being with the easement or potential easement to Carlton Avenue.
Right.
That's the issue that we're discussing.
I would ask the council to separate those two issues. I know the public hearing is open, and it should remain open because that can remain open at this moment in time because the zoning issue is really what you advertise. It's just that the A and B are out of order, but we've been talking about both issues. I'll ask Mr. Dodd if he has any testimony more on A or about the access to the road for the subdivision.
No. Early on, Mr. Leosa, we had discussed, I think, before planning somewhat, and I think somewhat before the council, the notion of possibly having an easement.
Right.
Then I think the better consensus was that Mr. Russo, at his expense, would improve that portion of Carlton Avenue, of whatever the number of linear feet are, at his expense to the satisfaction of the Public Works Department. And again, we would so stipulate. I'm not sure you need testimony on that. It's in the plans, but that
you want
is
to
what
vote, do you want the council to vote on allowing that access
Yes.
to that stipulation?
Yes.
So that's one vote I think the council should deal with. It's got nothing to do with the zone change. Yes, so,
Correct. No,
so the record is clear.
It was a hybrid proposal from the get-go, so you're correct. I believe that your advice to the council accurately reflects what's before us tonight.
no, Mr. Iglesias, it's a famous case in Rhode Island, Town of East Greenwich Planning Board versus Town of East Greenwich Town Council. The Town Council acted as the planning board of review. This particular case, the planning board has reviewed and somewhat approved a lot division contingent on the Town Council agreeing.
It's not on the lot, on the access.
On the act, but, yeah, I'm kind of looking at this now. So, the remainder of that property, which is the proposed, with the exception of this, it's called an hourglass, that would remain RA for the essence of making this decision tonight.
Exactly. That's
Let
right.
me pose this to you. The big question here, the big gorilla in the room is access off of Carlton Avenue, whether we improve the road to town specs or we grant an easement to get into, now we're acting as zoning, we're going to give, which I guess we can, to give them access into the property. Going back through the maps, going back through the proposed plans that have been sent to us, the one that was sent to us on December 13th, which shows more of a triangular, you're familiar with it, triangular piece of land. It makes more sense than the pork chop dog lot. If access from Carlton Road is coming in, you following it, Mr. Dodd?
Yes.
I'm sure you are. I don't mean to say that condescendingly. I gotta follow it myself. So if this town council were to vote to allow the access off of Carlton Road, whether by improved road or by an easement or right away, we can't approve that because planning has not looked at this, or has not approved this triangular piece.
But we're not going with that
They're
piece.
not asking.
You're still going
No,
with the pork
we have
chop.
this one. We've been working this evening.
I know, I'm trying to suggest that though. It might be
I
an
don't think
easier
you could do
sell.
that because the
Have them
planning,
go to planning.
the planning has already approved the hourglass lot, and that plan that was submitted was.
I'm trying to help.
I understand.
I'm trying to get you in there for a residential property, which it currently is zoned for. Okay.
So you do have two choices. I think, Mr. Vice President and Mr. President, just for clarification, I think the Vice President suggesting one or two choices. You can vote to accept the hourglass lot as approved by the planning board and grant access on Carlton Road subject to town specification, option one. Because that's what we're zoning. Option two, refer it back to the planning with the idea that you want just a triangular lot. I think that's what the Vice
Yeah,
President.
sorry, I didn't articulate it, but that's where I was going.
And then that's just about the lot and access to Carlton. Those are the options, is to approve as a planning board recommendation is hourglass lot, access to Carlton, subject, as Mr. Pendergast's testimony said, subject to town specifications. So you have an unusual configured lot, but it meets zoning requirements and you've granted access. And that would allow
John
Mr.
to build the
Russo
house.
to build his house. That's like step one.
Because there is frontage on 102.
Exactly.
That's not a hardship there.
Right. So that's.
So, in
that's
essence,
option
yeah,
one.
so this option B or option 2, which would be to ask planning to take a look at it, to look at the revised plan, which is dated,
113?
sorry, no, 12/13, which is the, without,
For clarification, Mr. Dunn, the only plan that you want us to look at is the one dated 1/3 of 19, is that correct?
no.
Maybe
Yes,
wrong.
yes.
That's what I think. I don't
Yes.
think like-
Yep, it is. It's the last one.
This was the 12-13 one.
Yep. It is.
Exactly.
Yes, sir. You want to consider both? One option A.
Tough decision. Come on, a game show.
You want the plan dated 1/3 of 2019?
I really would like my commercial business highway guys. But the house lot is, so this, we can vote on this on the house lot right now?
What you're asking, I believe, Mr. Vice President, is straight up or down on this plan, which is dated 1/3/19, or have the option of vote on an alternate, which is to send it back to zoning based upon 12/13/18.
Planning for the division of the lot. There'd be a
Correct, planning
decision,
zone.
yeah. With, making sure that you do have access, proper access.
Or straight up on this one.
He has to decide.
Well, we can still vote on the plan that's in front of us.
Let's just vote on the plan that's in front of us.
Okay.
One dated 1/3/2019.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then as to subdivision and access only at this
Access.
time,
Yes,
that's question A.
yes. There's two different votes that would have to be taken on what we propose for this proposal.
Access to meet town, Smithfield Land Development subdivision regulations.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
So the item that's before us now, I would entertain a motion on, or I would look for a motion from the council, what they want to do with the proposed lot line approved by the planning board as far as an easement or a road improvement on Carlton Avenue, we have access to that site.
The site is over there.
Just if you might include, again, the date of.
Date 1,
Yes. 1/3/19.
1/3/2019.
I'll make motion to accept plan dated 1/3/19 to give access from Carlton after designing and acceptance of a road by the highway department with the 150 foot of frontage off of 102.
I think there's one more word needed. It's designing, approval, acceptance, and construction.
And construction.
So there's a motion, is there a second? I'll second the discussion. Planning board's approved subdivision of that lot. Has nothing to do with the BH,
Yeah.
has nothing to do with business highway zone, they just approved the subdivision of that lot. That lot's looking for access on Carlton Avenue, and after much discussion, we determined that the town would like Mr. Russo to improve that road to the end, to meet the town specs, give him access to that site, and that's what the motion is for, is to do that. Hasn't been a motion in a second.
So we're under
Under
discussion.
discussion.
Yes. So we're looking at this plan, you can see a proposed lot line, and it crosses over from RA into proposed, it's all RA. But there's also a proposed zone line there. Just don't want to lose sight of the fact that what's being proposed here. There's a lot line, and then you also see area D as business highway. So with the motion, I would just ask the solicitor's clarification here, that if the motion were to be made and the second was to be made, that includes, to make the notation that business highway is not in that triangular, it looks like a fin on the back of a jet plane for like area D. So, in making this motion, just want to make sure that BH is not included.
And one step further, Mr. Vice President, for the purpose of this motion, none of that area that's proposed BH.
Perfect, that would
None
cover.
of it is. For
So,
purposes of this motion, at this point, that's all our end. Our
It
end.
stays residential.
At this moment,
So can we ask, should we ask at this point that the main maker rescind and reword that?
the only motion, the only thing that's before the council right now is whether you're gonna grant access if he constructs, designs, accepts, and constructs the road to town specifications in the back of that lot. That's all. That's the only thing. The other issue is gonna come up after this, but I think you should take them separately.
Yeah. Do you want to,
There's been a motion, there's been a motion and a second to that. Still in discussion.
So it's maintaining the 150 feet frontage on the main road
As residential.
as residential.
Can we have a moment before you vote?
absolutely.
Confirm, you asked for a recess.
Oh, yes, for
Yes, for a recess.
So let's make a recess, 5 minutes then.
motion to recess.
So moved.
Second.